be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. Jesus said to his disciples, "The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure buried in a field, which a person finds and hides again, and out of joy goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant searching for fine pearls. When he finds a pearl of great price, he goes and sells all that he has and buys it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net thrown into the sea, which collects fish of every kind. When it is full, they haul it ashore, and sit down and put what is good into buckets, but the bad they throw away. Thus it will be at the end of the age. The angels will go out and separate the wicked from the righteous, and throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be wailing and grinding of teeth." "Do you understand these things?" They answered, "Yes." And he replied, "Then every scribe who has been instructed in the kingdom of heaven is like the head of a household, who brings from his storeroom both the new and the old." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Have you noticed in our past few weekends how Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven, and he uses these different parables? The kingdom of heaven is like this. The kingdom of heaven is like that. The kingdom of heaven is also like this. So on and so forth, the many different images that he uses for the kingdom of heaven. Did you also notice that a great number of these little short parables that he gives are related to skills? Whether it is farming, whether it is fishing, whether it is financing, and all these things, it talks about skillfulness. How often I find is the case that we treat faith as merely a natural impulse. I think faith in all of humanity, whatever it is that they believe, nevertheless, we have documented history of people from thousands and thousands of years ago having this impulse that there is something greater than themselves. And the revelation of our God slowly, gradually over the course of time that we come to know him, eventually we come to know his name. Eventually we come to know his Son. Even though there is that impulse, I think it's often forgotten that faith and the components of faith are skills as well. We are naturally disposed towards them, but we are not naturally masters of them. I'll give you another example, perhaps a bit closer to home. When I often talk with married couples, for example, as I have been recently, I tell them we grow up our whole lives speaking. We grow up our whole lives hearing. We grow up our whole lives feeling. But in all of those things, do we feel as if that we are skilled at expressing ourselves? Do we feel like at every moment, every time, we can put what's inside of our hearts and our minds into words that other people can understand and truly understand? Or what about in hearing? We can hear the words of others, but do we actually listen to what they're saying? Can we hear behind the words? Do we understand where the words are coming from? We begin to realize that even when it comes to listening, it's not as obvious or as easy as it seems. And what even about our feelings? We have our common feelings: happy, sad, angry, tired, all the other things. But do those words accurately capture what's inside of us? If you really look at the dictionary, for example, there's hundreds of words related to feeling. All the shades of sadness and anger and happiness and apprehension and pensiveness and anxiety. So many words to capture just the varying degrees of things that we feel inside. And even if we have a name for them, do we understand them? I hope you see what I'm trying to get at here, which is this, is that the things that we take for granted, the things that we possess and have inside of us that we're able to do, We have them. But it by no means means that we are masters of them, that we understand how to use them, how to utilize them, how to use them in service of God and others. It takes skill. It takes being intentional. It takes a desire to want those things. In that same way, that is why the reading from the book of Kings for Solomon is so important. Because what is power if all we do is isolate others? What is money if we just waste it? What is money if we don't even know what we want to do with it? What is all the other good things caught up in being a king if we do not have understanding? The understanding of right and wrong and what is and isn't the will of God. And even for Solomon, he grows in wisdom. He refines the skill of his understanding, of his judgment, of his administration. The same is true of faith. By a long way of saying it, what I'm getting back to is this. Our faith is something all of us have in our hearts. You all have prayed, you all have looked for God and all that other stuff. But if it only becomes, I only search for him when I have the impulse to search for him. I only read him when I have the impulse to read for him. Think of anything else in your life, your job, your parenting, your relationships. Have any of them grown or been perfected only because you thought of it at a moment and you just did something? Rather, they only got better when you made the effort and say, I will do what it takes to be better at it. I think faith deserves that same treatment. I think faith deserves that same passion. To use a modified and updated analogy from a saint long ago, he began to notice people on the streets, some who were selling things, some who were selling even other people. And it said that that particular saint broke down and cried when he realized, if I had the same passion for these people who in their sinfulness cheat others and sell others and harm others, the same passion that they have for those things, if I had that same passion for God and his kingdom and his gospel, the world would be transformed. All we're asking for here is, what sort of passion do you bring into your faith? What sort of passion will you use to improve the skills of prayer, communication, service, and love? They are impulses, but they are skills. We ask God today at this Mass for understanding how to make them more skillful and how to perfect them in our lives, and love God and serve others and make disciples.